It started 2014 when I came out west. For the first time, I went to where my native ancestors come from in northern Saskatchewan. And I heard that story about my great-great-grandfather when he was about 8. Him and his twin brother were found in the wilderness in the Northwest Territories by some Cree trappers. They were living in a hut of branches, wearing rawhide, eating bugs and roots, and they didn't speak any human language. When I asked about that story to my cousin, she said, "We have Sasquatch in the family. We have a mind, but it's just an antenna. Consciousness is beyond physical and linear time. So this is what we have to tap into, understand all the different aspects of our being and of the universe around us."
Gentlemen, let's broaden our minds.
Are they in the proper approach pattern for today?
Negative.
Hold the weapon! Now! Charge the lightning field!
You only get hired if you can tie a cherry stem into a bow with your tongue.
Or if you're a little person who can talk backwards.
Welcome back to Dispatch Ajax. I'm Skip.
I am True Brother Jake.
Starseed.
I am Xenu. Welcome to the pod.
I'm Zeno, Destroyer of Worlds.
I am Zeno. I make fax machines and copiers. None of them are functioning. None of the toner is ever in stock, but we hope you've enjoyed your purchase, and feel free to like, share, and subscribe.
We are Neo-Zizians now. It's already been rebooted.
Oh, man.
In the multiverse.
I can't ever keep up with this stuff.
You know, these kids today, when we were younger, Branch Davidians took a while, right? Jonestown took a long time to build. You know, even Manson took a bit. But now Zizians, you're in and out.
No, nobody's even buying the same shoes and cutting off their genitals. Come on now.
Yeah, come
into
on, lazy fuckers. So we're going to go on a journey right now, and it's going to be a sec. So we'll see how far we can get into this before we turn into Sam Neill from In the Mouth of Madness at the end.
Kids, put your shoes on, get your backpacks ready, make sure your mom packed your lunch, because we are going on a journey.
Yeah, get your bug out bag ready, because
oh, unfortunately, it's necessary.
Get your Luigi Mangione backpack armed and ready. We're going somewhere weird.
Get your copy of The Road and read up on what's coming for us all.
Get your copies of The Road and On the Road. So we're going to start out right here. Ape Canyon is a gorge along the edge of the Plains of Abraham on the southeast shoulder of Mount St. Helens in the state of Washington. In the summer of 1924, hard-working miners, according to them,
self-professed hard-working miners,
came across strange animals in the wilderness. So, obviously, they started shooting at them.
Yeah.
Well, it's America, you know?
I mean, the gun was right there.
I was cleaning it when it went off. And when one of the group shot one of the animals with a rifle, he hit it 3 times. And then they all saw the wounded animal topple off a cliff into what is described as an inaccessible canyon. Now, later that evening, they were savagely attacked in the middle of the night by unknown assailants. The wooden frame of their cabin shook violently, its door was rattling, and it was pelted with gigantic rocks, which they described as boulders. At one point, a huge fur-covered arm reached in through the window and grabbed at an axe that one of the miners had left on the table. The men took aim and fired everything they had.
Their guns, right? Not their nocturnal emissions?
It was no skeet shooting, no.
Furry hands groped in the night, reaching for whatever hardware might be available.
There's so much homoeroticism going on here. Fortunately, these miners did live, but they would be forever changed. Now, what I'm going to do right now is I am going to send you a newspaper picture from this era.
Wait, what's a newspaper?
Let's see here. There we go.
Mountain Devil!
Notice some of the headlines in the image here.
Oh, okay. Oh, all right. Hell So Mines Why am I doing like the southern accent? I don't need that.
I don't know. They're in Washington. I don't know.
I don't. What's a Washingtonian accent?
It's kind of Canadian.
Okay. Kelso Mines back with the tale of mountain devils, eh? Oh,
It's not that Canadian.
let me tone. Gorilla men, rare Indians fail to get their souls.
Yeah.
Mountain devils talk of miners is unshaken.
Mm-hmm. So these men claim, based on their account, that they were attacked by some sort of strange creatures that were humanoid, covered with fur, and violent. Though they did, I don't know, shoot at them and kill one of their brethren, or what have you.
I mean, that's supposed to be a problem. Whenever us, as white people, encounter something we don't know, especially a hominid that seems to be similar to us in any way, shape, or form, obviously we need to kill them first. Ask questions later.
You have to.
Have to. That's what we've done our entire existence.
That is literally true. Yep. It's like that Mr. Show skit when they were like, we were shooting at them first and they shot back. Why? So let's fast forward. In 1967, Roger Patterson and Robert Gimlin, two former rodeo savants.
Okay. A term that's never been used before in all of human history.
No, I'll coin that one. I'll trademark it. How about that?
Rodeo savant.
A bon vivant rodeo savant. And also amateur boxers. Made an ironic little movie. Maybe you've heard of it. It may be the second most seen amateur film ever made. So this film was shot on a 16mm Cine Kodak K100 with a mobile grip handle at 24 frames per second. The footage was shot in 1967 in Northern California along Bluff Creek, a tributary of the Klamath River, which I've been on. About 25 logging road miles northwest of Orleans, California, in Del Norte County, Six Rivers National Forest. The film is roughly 38 miles south of California and 18 miles east of the Pacific Ocean, just to put it in context. And now these areas are very difficult to get to because it's really hard to, if you want to get to the coast, even though you're like really close to the coast, there's a mountain range in the way. So you have to go down and around to get to it. So this is a very remote area. And so for decades, the exact location of this site was lost. A lot of it was because of regrowth of foliage in the stream bed after a flood that happened in 1964. It wasn't even rediscovered by human beings until 2011. It's just south of a north-running segment of the creek informally known as the bowling alley, where the dude abides.
7-10 split.
So originally, in May or June 1967, Patterson began filming a docudrama, or I guess you could say a pseudo-documentary, about cowboys led by an old miner, an old prospector,
Old rickety shits.
old pickle shoots, and a wise Indian tracker on the hunt for a legendary creature. The story called for Patterson, his Indian guide, who, by the way, was just Gimlin in a wig, and the cowboys to recall in flashbacks the stories of one of the miners from the 1924 Ape Canyon incident, and then others as they, encountered them along the trail. For actors and cameramen, Patterson used at least 9 volunteer acquaintances, including Gimlin and a guy named Bob Hieronymus, which is an awesome name.
That is an awesome name.
For 3 days of shooting, expected at least over the Memorial Day weekend. So in 1967, Patterson and his friend Gimlin set out for the Six Rivers National Forest. They drove in Gimlin's truck carrying his provisions and 3 horses positioned sideways, which is awful. Patterson chose the area because of intermittent reports of these supposed legendary creatures in the past, and people have discovered their footprints since 1958. His familiarity with the area and its residents, he thought it was achievable, essentially. But what they managed to shoot was not this pseudo-documentary. What they shot was, indeed, a Sasquatch, an American Yeti Bigfoot.
An ape man.
Or an ape man. The word Sasquatch, from the Stales people who have called Canada home for tens of thousands of years, is an anglicized version of their word Saskets, which is used to describe caretakers who watch over the land. This film shows 952 frames of Bigfoot, which subsequently has been nicknamed Patty. It amounted to approximately 39.7 seconds of footage. Now, if you've ever seen this, which almost everyone has, it's the most iconic Bigfoot thing ever, just even imagery-wise, it is interesting and it is compelling. Especially since it's 1967, how do you have costume technology and the special effects makeup technology to be able to create this? And then people debated about the way that it moves organically, seems natural, doesn't seem human-like, it doesn't seem like a guy in a suit. Even though there were rumors that special effects makeup wizard John Chambers created a suit that was used in the film as a hoax. Now, both the filmmakers and Chambers denied this. But the most surprising thing about the film is that it's never been really, truly debunked. I mean, people doubt it, and people have come out and said, I was there, or I talked to the dude, or whatever. I mean, it's never actually been officially discredited. Even though, before he died, costume manufacturer Philip Morris gave talks about how he sold Roger Patterson the suit seen on the film. One of his talks featured examples of the faked Bigfoot, and that was featured on the Travel Channel's Making Monsters. We're going to fast forward again. Born in Montreal in a French-Canadian family, Sunbow True Brother, whose real name he says is irrelevant, found inspiration in the Patterson Gimlin film. Quote, well, it is a story of many lifetimes that began in my late childhood and preteens with the Patterson footage. My first experience was Sasquatch. I was 17 years old, young and supple like a fawn. In the region of British Columbia called Chehalis, it was the beginning of my journey to connect with the Sasquatch and indigenous elders whom I have traveled to learn with for the last 40 years, during which I have had many sightings and experiences. So that's who we're talking about today.
So I know a little bit of what we're going to talk about. And it's interesting that I remember seeing the Patterson Gimlin footage as a child, along with many other pictures and photographs and video footage of different paranormal phenomena. And I was always fascinated. But it seems to be certain inflection points that can change the path of your life. Like, I could have seen this and chosen the left, and gone somewhere completely different. Am I that different from a Sunbow True Brother? Could I have been one of the elders?
You're a Robert Frost poem away from being a different person.
Fine lines. It's life in the margins, my friend.
The sliding doors. So Sunbow True Brother, who does keep his real name close to the chest, close to the vest, sorry.
Close to the hairy chest.
Which is funny. That's actually a thing I cut out of this, is that one of the arguments about why it didn't make sense that Sasquatch looked the way it did was because in the second Planet of the Apes movie, there's a scene where they're in a sauna and they're like bare-chested, which wouldn't happen. And it kind of looked like the way that Patty looked in that footage. So they assumed that they used the same technology that they used in Planet of the Apes to make a costume. But at the same time, I find that a little dubious only because Planet of the Apes had just come out. That was innovative costuming technology to the extent where the guy that created that, who also created a bunch of Star Trek makeup, was employed by the CIA to help hide CIA agents overseas during, I don't know, to watch Argo. I mean,
you dress them up you dress them much as Bigfoot, and then you send them other places, and they blend into the natural surroundings, and it's easy peasy lemon squeezy.
Then you get married to the $6 million man. It's the oldest story.
Name a better plot. Okay, that is the pinnacle of subterfuge, and it's really what our whole intel infrastructure is based on right there.
Yeah, COINTELPRO, Project Mockingbird. It's all about Sasquatch.
The Iran Sasquatch affair, I think, is how they...
The Sasquatch Contra. Why do you think Ollie North went to prison?
Spurned is Sasquatch love.
Spurned.
It's just theory. We're working on it still.
And as much as it would be fun to do an entire thing on Sasquatch, there's so much lore and weirdness out there that there's no way we could do it in any reasonable time. And I include, there are stories of dudes that encountered a Sasquatch family and encountered their females, and the females wanted to mate with him, and like literally stuff we're joking about, they've actually said is true.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of weird Sasquatch stories.
And some of it isn't incredible. I don't know that that's what happened, because there's that one dude who went through that thing where he camped out and he got attacked by a Sasquatch family and he got kidnapped. And then by the time he was finally returned, his hair had turned completely white in reality. So something happened to that dude. But was it Sasquatch? I couldn't tell you. Especially since the Sasquatch lore hasn't really existed for very long, relatively. The 1924 Ape Men attack was only sort of rolled into Sasquatch lore after the Patterson Gimlin film. There were other situations, like, for instance, and I didn't know this existed until today, was the International Committee for the Study of the Human-like Hairy Bipeds, which was formed on the initiative of Professor Caretakers, president of the International Institute of Sociology, for the purpose of studying and exchanging information about the alleged, they called them snowmen, and other hairy bipeds. They claim that still little known to science about which ancient documents and recent testimony are becoming ever more abundant. So this dude was actually from Italy, and this was this weird international think tank that had actual scientists behind it. One of which was Dr. A.A. Smakov.
Mm-hmm.
So people from Russia, Germany, Italy, the United States, Canada.
An international affair.
Truly international. Let's see, Dr. Marka Burns of Leeds University, some of which may be credible, created the society to figure out if this was real or not. And this is like right before the Patterson Gimlin film. Because of international sightings of what we would call Sasquatch, they would call Yeti or snowmen. And then, of course, there's the Dyatlov Pass incident, where one of the last photos taken on the roll of film ever exposed was of a weird, mysterious, tall creature. And one of the last things ever mentioned by one of the people is that at last we know now that the snowmen are real. So, that having been said, Sunbow True Brother, in his sort of treatise, which he has many, claims that the first native, when he says native, he either means indigenous or first peoples, because he's Canadian, but also claims to know a lot about native tribes, but doesn't seem to understand them or how to refer to them. The first native, quote-unquote, legend he ever heard was when he was 8 years old, from his brother, who had heard it in a summer camp about the Wawaloo, which were essentially the hairy forest people, as they're referred to in the state of Maine. He claims he had never heard the word Sasquatch yet, but it was only a few years later that he saw the Patterson Gimlin film. He then went on to read Chariots of the Gods by Von Daniken, which, man, we should probably do a thing on that. And then his brain slowly started to crack.
Or expand.
Either way, it came wide open. That's when he began his interest in star people. And according to him, hidden archaeology and the paranormal, which he could have just led with that, but whatever. So before he turned 17, he took his first tour of Turtle Island, which became a pilgrimage in search of spiritual understanding. He claims through religious exploration, churches, temples, ashrams, and connections with what he uses in all caps, Mother Nature. That fall, he claims that a medicine man, in quotes, instructed him on how to do a vision quest, during which he experienced his first spirit guide. He said he didn't know what was happening, but he felt deeply that native ancestral teachings held many answers. So that following summer, he went to his first rainbow gathering. There she is.
What, pray tell, is a rainbow gathering?
Yeah, so it's a little difficult to describe. Think of it as Burning Man, but more esoteric and harder to find and constantly shifting. If you do it, you already have to know where it's going to be. You have to know somebody who knows somebody to get there. You don't buy tickets. It's essentially what a burn is, which a burn is, they're basically just outdoor festivals, right? Sometimes they're musically inclined. Sometimes they're just people meeting out in the woods and hanging out and talking about how much, corporate America sucks, and then doing like pagan rituals or whatever. But it gets pretty intense with rainbow festivals. I mean, I've encountered, because there was one in Colombia once, and I encountered a guy who went to one. This dude, I was in some shop, and this guy walks in, and he's like, I don't know, probably like 6'1", 6'2", older dude, gray beard, wearing a crown of elk antlers, and not wearing a whole lot.
I like what you told me so far. All right.
And a giant walking staff with like charms.
Is that what
all
we're going to call it?
I mean,
a walking staff? All right. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Not a lot else you can call it, because that's literally what it was. Because his junk was pretty much hanging out anyway, so like there's no innuendo there. Essentially,
I live by innuendo, sir. Do not take that away from me. It is the air with which I breathe.
My father used to say, "Out your door and innuendo." It is very much like a burn or some sort of outdoor festival that we're kind of like experienced with now, but much more intense and much more sincere and much less sort of like involved with capitalism or modern society.
It's like a speakeasy.
A little bit.
Well, I mean, just in the way that you need to, yeah. No, I mean, it's like, it's,
yeah, absolutely.
It's a little more secretive. You have to be in the know to like get the invite, and then.
Mm-hmm. So that was a big game changer for him. And so over the next nearly 4 decades, he claims to have traveled through 20 countries in the Americas and Western Europe. And he goes on a diatribe about this a lot in one of his many websites and books and blogs, where he says things like, I was blessed to sit and learn, receive teachings, and take part in ceremonies with many elders from several native nations, including Hopi, Diné, Navajo, Apache, Anishinaabe, Algonquin, Cree, Métis, Ojibwe, Atikamek, Abenaki, Mi'kmaq, Maliset, Innu, Inuit, Wampanoag, Mohawk, Cayuga. In his, what he calls his abbreviated biography, goes on for another 5 paragraphs of nations and tribes that he supposedly studied with, interacted with. And then at the end goes, I also studied and learned from other spiritual teachings like the Vedic scriptures. End of thought, I guess.
Well, there's never mind.
Then he goes on to say that from the Lakota, that he did a sweat lodge with a man named Salo Black Crow, who he says brought back the sun dance. I'm not exactly sure what he means by that. Then he went to a place called Pine Ridge, where a guy named David Swallow invited me to put... Okay, all right, hold on. I'm going to put this in quote. Make sure we highlight the horrible way that he wrote this, because this is actually from his blog. You're going to like this. David Swallow invited me to put up my teepee and join in the ceremony. But sadly, my traveling partners had no time, so I gave him an earth flag. Is that like the reverse frogman, or is that...
I used my hairy palms to give him an earth flag.
I gave the underside a little how's your father. He gave me an earth flag. Oh boy. He's written a bunch of books. In almost every single one of these, it's rife with misspellings and grammatical errors. So that's a thing. So then in 1994, he joined what he called ceremonies at an event called World Unity, which was near Grand Canyon, and at the celebration on Barnaby Mountain for stopping a pipeline, which is cool, and at the spring for the International Indigenous Gathering in Lillooet, where he sat in the circle of pipe carriers who carried Crazy Horse's sacred pipe. Oh God, why did I do this to myself? Tasunke Witko Kanupa Wakan.
That was not bad. At least, I think. It sounded good to me.
He claims that he was allowed to carry this pipe to different ceremonies. And he claims that in this specific ceremony, I don't know if he added it to the pipe itself or like to some sort of burn of some sacred objects or whatever. He's not very clear about it. But he says to have added some hair from a white bison she-calf named Prophecy, born in Quebec in 2005.
Okay,
right. So now we're back to about 2007. He talks about how many different cultural groups he studied with, religious organizations he studied with. He claims to have been adopted into several indigenous tribes in North America, some of which I think is true, some of which I think is either not true or they were just trying to get him out of the door. Like, yeah, great, cool. Here's your official sash or whatever. The really important thing that he gets to, we'll get to in a second. Timeline-wise, let's skip ahead again. Let's go all the way to 2013. Dr. Melba Ketchum and her colleagues published a paper in the journal De Novo Accelerating Science, in which they claimed they had sequenced genes from a creature unknown to science, which they named Homo sapiens cognatus. This became what is known as the Sasquatch Genome Project.
Oh. Science!
Mm-hmm. Actual science.
Well, we'll just go with science. I don't know if we need the actual. I don't.
So the Sasquatch Genome Project isn't just about being in the lab and doing the tests like you'd think, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. They do all the work. They do field studies. They take pictures and release them online. It's a 5-year study that cost $500,000 that was funded by a businessman named Adrian Erickson. Now, he said that he encountered Sasquatch-like creatures and that he has the photos and the science to back their existence. But he also went out of his way to be like, I get it. Quote, people have chosen not to believe it. They can't find it in their minds that these things exist. So he wanted a credible platform to document this in real science. Now, the problem with a lot of this is it's really hard to do credible science if you start out with a premise where you already have an unshaken belief in something that isn't proven to be real. I mean, isn't that kind of the premise of science? So now you're working hard to prove that it is.
Yeah, you don't want to back engineer your science.
Exactly. That's the opposite of how science works. This creature does not follow general rules, says Dr. Ketchup. And it is spelled like you would think, ketchup. What it does do is very different. We think it is a human hybrid. That's our theory. Okay, we've already got some problems here. You want to create a scientific method and some sort of society. They genuinely tried to publish real scientific, peer-reviewed studies based on this thing that isn't in any way, shape, or form ever proven to be real. Assuming that it is. Here's an interesting quote I found from an interview that someone did with Sunbow True Brother. I found in my research discussions about the Sasquatch Genome Project that our big brothers, which is what they call the Sasquatch universe of creatures, have human DNA. What is your understanding of this line of research? The answer. Sasquatch people have been on this planet much longer than us, upwards of 200 to 300 million years now. They are much older relatives. They share 99% of our DNA. Despite mainstream ridicule, there are over 100 DNA samples that have been subjected to a 5-year research project headed up by Dr. Ketchum. Her findings traced the mitochondrial DNA and found that it stems from human female ancestors. These can be traced to remote populations sometimes around 13,000 years ago. Okay, there's a problem here.
Just one?
Oh, okay. There are problems here. That's not really how science works, first of all. You're assuming something that you believe that everyone believes in already. I will cite again, just for context, that interview I did that one time when I was working in the news in Oregon, when we interviewed that woman who's protesting the building of 5G towers. And the interview started out with, well, we all know that 5G gives cancer to cats. Thus, this is what I believe. And it's like, okay, let's back up a second. Do we all know that? Is that a real thing that we all know? So this is 2013, by the way. He hasn't even had his big moment. But he does have some good points. Like, in this same interview, they posed the question, in your opinion, is the secrecy and deliberate dismissal of Sasquatch connected with corporate industry's desire to continue unchecked with destructive extraction projects and practices? If you just kind of take the Sasquatch part out of that, can't really argue. His answer, one only has to look at the history of genocide and colonization in Canada to get a clear picture of the lengths governing bodies and corporations will go to secure resources. Good point, by the way. Great measures and entire committees have been created to hunt and suppress the truth about Sasquatch. Okay. The International Committee for Research into Hairy Humanoids, which we talked about, was founded in Rome in 1963 by the CIA, the KGB, and the MI6. I don't know about that. It was an unofficial operation that was tasked to attend to reports, collect data, and remove evidence. Further, the U.S. Embassy in Nepal penned, quote, the Yeti Memo, a document deploying the several Yeti hunting expeditions into the Himalayas between 1957 and 1959. An explorer named Peter Byrne, who also hunted Yeti, found in a remote Buddhist temple what he believed was a Yeti hand, which he stole and brought back to the United States. What became of it then becomes obscure. Now, that is true. That did happen.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
This was in fucking 2013, okay? We both know about this thing. They did do DNA testing on that hand, and it proved to be a black bear. So if you're going to do a Sasquatch DNA project, a genome project, and one of your biggest examples has already been proven to not be whatever it is you think it is, and you're using that as a baseline, there's a problem with your science. I understand the want to believe. It gets real weird. So we haven't even gotten to Sunbow's biggest contribution to the world. In his websites, he skips back to the 90s and the 80s, and then he goes back to the 2000s and what have you. He has also published a fuck ton of books.
You got to get the word out there, right?
I want to send you this video, but it's also an hour and 43 minutes long. One of his websites has a chat bot that keeps asking me if I have questions. Do I have questions?
Let me count the ways.
So he does have, by the way, about 10,000 websites. It's kind of bizarre how many websites that he maintains. And ironically, he does no longer control his Facebook page. It got dinged and he can't access it, which is like, you'd think the one place, right? In 2015, supposedly, Sunbow encountered a Sasquatch for himself, specifically an elder of their tribe named Elder Kamooh. Not spelled like the philosopher Camus, obviously.
No, it's Kamooh. Is that right?
Exactly. Have you encountered some of those quotes yet?
I've seen a smattering. I was actually trying to do some more research on the previous history of Sunbow. It's hard to find. If I remember right, I think he was a child psychologist before he decided to branch out and do his Sasquatchin work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, his Squatchin.
Yeah. His prophecies of Squatchacies.
Yeah, let's see.
Well, he's done a good job of telling the story of himself that he wants out there. And it kind of seems to start with him delving into his shamanic practices of Native American, Indigenous, First Nations, American Indian peoples. And then jumping from that into space brethren, etc., etc.
Some of which is a problem, not to overstate the obvious, but his co-opting of every possible indigenous religion ever as a white dude. That's a little problematic, but he claims to have this long career, which sure, yeah, he probably did a lot of really interesting stuff and did a lot of drugs, went to a lot of rainbow festivals and probably a lot of Burning Mans. And I know I've seen him do a lot of talks. You can watch a lot of videos of him on YouTube doing it, but it's not until 2015 that he actually claims to have had an encounter with a Sasquatch. That is pretty late in the game for that. So Sunbow received and transcribed messages from an elder Sasquatch named Kamooh while in British Columbia. The Sasquatch people asked us, I guess it's the human race, to disseminate the information as it's a message, this is really badly written, as it's a message to the world for each to do our part to save Earth and then the human race. There's an extra letter in that word. Our Sasquatch elders want to, quote, talk with people in a powerful decision-making capacity because someone must comprehend all the negativity that is happening and take the lead in creating a peaceful and environmentally friendly world for a healthier planet in spirit, mind, and body.
So were they speaking English or... Is this
I think it was telepathic.
Oh, one of those soul speaks.
Yeah, or pseudo-telepathic, kind of like Betty and Barney Hill, or some of the UFO stuff we talked about before. Mm-hmm. He talks about how, the Sasquatch were interdimensional beings which explains, well, he kind of waffles back and forth between it being a conspiracy with all the world's intelligence agencies covering up the evidence that those things existed, to also being an international being who are aliens, but also share 99% of our DNA somehow, and that they have messages from on high about what we're doing wrong and how we could make it better. On his website, he goes in detail about a lot of his projects, some of the documentaries that he created after he met with Elder Kamooh, who is essentially Joseph Smith stuff. It's also kind of The Day the Earth Stood Still, an outside being coming down from on high, telling us why we're fucking up and how we could be better and how we could fix things. And he's basically built an entire career off of that. He built so many websites and also many books based on the whole thing. He's kind of propped up at this point by the mainstream Sasquatch investigative community, which includes actual scientists like we talked about with the Sasquatch Genome Project. And he claims that he continued to receive and transcribe messages from Kamooh and other Sasquatch elders. And in 2017, he released a second book. I think there are 4 now. There are at least 3. And then it gets really weird because there are other people that believed him and ran other sort of, I think if it were any other type of thing, we'd just call them fan sites, but who also claim to have experienced the same things he did, like Kelly Rainbow Butterfly.
Good name.
That's about right. She said that she read one of the channeled messages from Sasquatch that Sunbow had shared on Facebook. Okay, let's isolate that sentence. Moment of silence for human culture.
Internet's a great place.
Man, we had so much promise. Kelly and Sunbow connected, and they collaborated to publish the Sasquatch Message to Humanity online. After publishing these messages that he received from Elder Kamooh, quote, they were phenomenal, and many people requested a hard copy to carry around and share, and thus began the process of making them available in paperback and ebook in 2016. Sunbow continued to receive and transcribe messages from Kamooh and other Sasquatch elders. And then so the second one came out. Kelly was also channeling message from several elders and guided to collaborate with other Sasquatch communicators, including Sunbow, on the Sasquatch Message to Humanity Book 3, Earth Ambassadors Cooperation, which was published in May 2018. This is from the website sasquatchmessage.com. We would like to thank everyone for their support of Kelly, Sunbow, and all the ambassadors of the loving Sasquatch people. These books have been made possible due to your love, support, and search for the truth, capital T. It is our intent to help others heal and find their path of light by sharing this message to humanity on behalf of the Sasquatchy collective consciousness. I think that's a pretty good place to end that.
So I do have a couple questions that we didn't quite get into.
Absolutely.
So it's also my understanding that the Sasquatch are also star brothers, right? They're like the Sasquatch
they're star people.
Star people. Okay, so they have ships, or is this more of like an consciousness expansion?
I think they manifest.
So
based on everything I've seen, I've never seen anything where they actually have ships. We've heard stories about the idea that they might.
Yeah, there's a lot of connections between.
None of that is in this canon.
Yeah, okay. Just some like I'm sure we'd have to read these books and get into it because there's a lot of space brother fluff that's floating around any hard elements of the story. I was also looking at some of the stuff in the Sasquatch Message to Humanity. They have details of the hidden history of the planet, the pre-human sagas of the fish, ant, and lizard people, and how the Sasquatch are our elder brothers who came just before us, before the dawn of humanity. So that paired with the Sasquatch is 99% human. So are we derived from the Sasquatch elders then?
That's right. Or are we parallel evolved?
But I mean, if there's Sasquatch elders and that.
So my feeling through looking through all of this, and I think you might agree with me on this, looking through all of it, they're trying to do mysticism that they can roughly and vaguely justify with real science, that they know that there were several species of hominids, that, Neanderthals existed, there are other species of human that existed, that it's not a one directly evolved into the other, it's a parallel species thing, and then sometimes they interbreed or what have you, so that the Sasquatch elders are separate but related, but also we evolved from them spiritually?
Right.
Let's say existentially.
I think perhaps it's best summed up by a quote. Thank you, Goodreads, or the sociopaths who are putting the quotes of these books on Goodreads. What we want to emphasize overall is the need for your human people, H and P capitalized, to reconnect with the wisdom of your soul, capitalized, and realign with the intelligence of your heart. Reactivate your genetic star seeds and soul, capitalized, memories. Recover your psychic abilities and evolve collectively into a higher spiritual consciousness.
Wow.
Quote again from the Sasquatch Message to Humanity. Conversations with Elder Kamooh. When the ant people rebuilt the actual moon, we see they made it of similar proportions to the first natural moon that had been destroyed, but they devised it to be 400 times smaller than the sun and set it 400 times closer so that it would fit perfectly its diameter during eclipses. This coded message for any intelligence was to remember the ant people as the first civilization on Earth. It explains why this perfect ratio is nowhere else found to be in our solar system, nor in any other.
I mean, we're all told that before we go to bed every night.
That's science, all right?
That's science right there. Yeah, these vague, wide swaths of statements, these general hand wavings of things that don't really seem to mean anything. Yeah, I mean, because we could go down and break down why that doesn't make sense, but I mean, really, it just be intuitive, but I mean, I guess it's not. Yeah, ant people somehow, what do they crawl into space?
We do need more information about the ant people and the fish people and the lizard people.
I agree. Release the ant people files.
Yeah. All right, enough with Epstein. Let's get the fish people documents, all right?
I need the lizard people files today. Our government is complicit.
Man, I could do so many of these, but, let's just end it like this.
Okay.
When the individual soul's emotional experience reaches empathy and compassion, their consciousness starts to understand intelligence and the spiritual meaning of life. I think we can all put that in our pocket and get on with our day.
Those are words to live by.
I mean, there are worse words. There's a lot of stuff in this that obviously we don't buy into, but there can be positive, life-affirming spiritual messages that help guide you through your day-to-day and your interactions with others that can be beneficial for both yourself and those around you.
In the end, it just kind of reminds me of Donnie Darko. You know what? Sunbow seems like a cool dude. I'd probably roll my eyes a few times, but I'd just share a spliff with him and maybe a trip with him or whatever.
It does sound like he's a Trump supporter, though, so...
Oh, he does?
I think so. If I remember right, there's stuff that the Sasquatch elders were, guiding Trump, and they were hoping that Trump would win to, help bring about the next level of consciousness.
That's the biggest problem with all this stuff. Do you, have fun, believe in whatever you want to believe, as long as you don't hurt anybody. But at some point, even during the narratives that he creates and other people tangentially have created around the things that he believes, eventually you get into some weird neo-Nazi dialogue. Even during some of this stuff, you could see where some people would go from what they're talking about to Vril, to Aryans, to the lizard people, to...
It can be a slippery slope. It's easy to diverge into those things, especially when you're doing hidden histories.
Everyone's lying to you. There's a conspiracy.
It can be a dark path that leads you away from karmic intuitions and, empathy with your fellow man. I was like, how do you get from these positive starseed galactic communion brotherhood messages to, well, I need Orange Man to hunt down brown people?
Let's say you're in, I don't know, Central or Northern California, and you're hanging out and you're sharing a spliff with some dude at some fun bonfire, and he seems like a really nice guy, probably intends to be a nice guy, completely, innocent meaning, and then, they start talking about starseeds, and that eventually just kind of devolves into fucking eugenics, and you're like, okay, whoa, hold on a second, wait, what? And then when they talk about the lizard people or other kind of conspiracies like that, well, they mean Jews, right?
Yeah. You can get that perspective with the trippy circle in the woods, but you can also go to your major political leaders who essentially we kind of want the Jews to take back their homeland so that they can start the war, and all of us good people who believe will get teleported into Spaceland before the devil takes over the earth and sends everybody to hell.
I don't believe in horseshoe theory, except in this instance. You go apart and then you eventually meet not quite in the middle, but close to the same level. Because you can have fucking crunchy, liberal, fucking even leftist moms who now are super anti-vax and are talking about Jewish space lasers. And it's sad because this stuff used to be fun.
Yeah.
When there was an agreed upon Nazis were bad, this stuff is interesting. The world used to be way more fun. Like how country music, pop country music, and mainstream hip hop, they're such opposites. And then somehow they come around in the middle at some point to meet to make honky donk badonkadonk.
It's
you know what I mean?
It's so weird. I was literally driving in the car just the other day, and I heard 2 or 3 songs, and they were all blends of country and rap. And I was like, is this just what music has evolved into? All of them had elements of, synthesizers and these pop vocals behind country singing and rhythms, and then rap interludes. It is just omni music. That is one.
It's a bizarre phenomenon because it's not a monoculture, but it presents as a monoculture.
Maybe it's a whole different world, whole different landscape.
Oh, maybe it's all money. What do you know?
Maybe it is how it always has been. The new boss is the same as the old boss. Or they're space brothers that are Sasquatch from here, but also the fourth dimensional
Not here.
consciousness? I don't know.
Are they the Fratelli brothers or are they the Scoleri brothers?
I think much like Sunbow True Brother, we have also lost the plot at this point.
Oh, big time. This fried my brain so much. I don't. Even more so, I think, than the Law of One, because that one at least was like some sort of faux cohesive philosophy. I mean, if you go to like one of his websites, they're like, these are our sister or brother websites, and they're like 15 of them. And they all have their own tangent websites. And you're like, okay, there's like the Sasquatch Family Reunion. That's a website. It doesn't end. It just goes on and on and on and on. And it's mostly the same people. I'm on SasquatchFamilyReunion.com right now, honoring all life, healing ourselves, and co-creating a regenerative Earth. They have an event coming up, an actual Sasquatch Family Reunion in Kettle Falls, Washington, May 28th to June 2nd, 2026. So,
Your tickets now, folks.
Book your tickets now. That one was founded by Kelly Rainbow Butterfly.
Oh, that might be going in the same time as the Juggalo event. And I can only choose one.
The gathering of the
I don't. Oof.
Well, and after the Burning Man orgy tent collapsed, I don't know that I really want to venture into this territory, but
I heard about that. Wasn't that during like the dust storm?
Yeah, it blew it down.
Oh, it definitely blew it down. All right.
Yeah, it definitely blew. That's for sure.
Well, we hope that this podcast didn't blow for you all.
Jesus Christ. It just...
You mean Jesus Christ, the space brother of the hairy kind?
Fellow Sasquatch, Jesus Christ.
I'm sure they have to mention Jesus somewhere in there, and I'm fascinated to know what they would say about it. But you know what? That is for you all to do your own research. Let the internet take you places that you don't want to go and see what you find.
Don't tell them that.
Well, it's what we all endure. We're all in the same boat. And it's all falling off a cliff of a flat Earth.
Indeed it is.
But until we all crash down to our demise, we hope that you have enjoyed the podcast and keep listening. Check back for next episode. If you wouldn't mind liking, sharing, subscribing, and maybe even rating us on the favorite podcast app of your choice. Ideally, 5 Elder Space Brothers of the hairy kind on Apple Podcasts. That's the best way for us to get heard and thus seen and spread our multi-level marketing pod cult to all that we deem worthy. And we want to thank you for listening. We always have a great time making these, and we hope that you have a great time listening. We hope you come back. But until that day, Space Brother, Skip, what should they do?
Well, I would like to first say that we, as a podcast, are trying to bridge Earth wisdom, spiritual ecology, and heart-centered community, first and foremost. That having been said, what our fans should do is make sure they've cleaned up after themselves to some sort of reasonable degree. Make sure they've paid their wait staff, their bartenders, their KJs, and what have yous. Make sure they support their local comic shops and retailers. And, once again, from Dispatch Ajax, we would both like to say Godspeed, Fur Wizards. You are all starseeds. That's a Wookiee!
Are Workies not Starseed brothers as well?
Are they not our brothers? Oh, yeah.
Does a Wookiee not bleed?
Do you shoot him first? Does he not Greedo?
Will he not reach his furry hand in your tent?
The Sasquatch are definitely not animals or primitive. Very evolved psychically, and so they are something else than what cryptozoologists, for instance, even anthropologists. It took me over 30 years to learn and understand that the Sasquatch are interdimensional beings. There's different types of Sasquatch, though. Just because of so many million years of evolution, as well on different planets, has given them a range of genetics. Well, they're further hairy from head to toe. They are taller than us in general, but there are also some that are smaller. The Sasquatch have kept in contact with the star people, which more precisely the star elders, the Council of Star Elders, because there's all kind of people in the universe, but there are some elders whose role is to maintain balance and watch over the worlds.